I'm Dave Greenwood, and this is Overcoming Distractions. If you are an adult with ADHD, a busy professional, an entrepreneur, a high achiever, or just need some strategies to navigate your adult ADHD, you're in the right place. Who am I? I'm an entrepreneur with ADHD and the author of 2 books, Overcoming Distractions and Overcoming Burnout. I coach and mentor people just like you, and together we navigate the ups and downs of adult ADHD. From getting out of our own way to helping people just like you thrive in the workplace. That's what I do. Want more info on working with me? Hit overcomingdistractions.com. Ready? Let's get to today's podcast. All right, gang, we are back, and this episode is dedicated to all you moms out there with ADHD, okay? But guys, hey, don't hit the stop button because I know you're going to learn something from this too. So don't walk away, all right? And maybe I'm overthinking this, but I know a few stay-at-home dads who have ADHD, so maybe you can pull a couple nuggets of information out of this or not. So, but today we have Anna Burns. She works with ADHD moms. We're going to discuss what it's like to be a mom with ADHD, some of those challenges, some of the happy stuff, I hope, and how you can make life a little bit less stressful and maybe a little more organized. Am I accurate in what we're going to chat about today?
Absolutely.
Cool. All right. So tell us a little bit more about Anna Burns Wellness, how you work with ADHD moms, and then let's start to help some people.
Sure, absolutely. So I am an ADHD mom myself. I was diagnosed after the birth of my son, who's now 4. And I realize, once you get diagnosed, you start putting the pieces together in the past. And it's like, oh my gosh, this was here all along. I was struggling all along and was just making up for it. And so I decided to really hone in the ADHD space, because there are so many women out there that don't know that they have ADHD, or they don't know that there's help out there, and just creating systems and spaces to make family life and work-life balance, quote unquote, easier and more manageable. And it's not necessarily about a character flaw or a character fault of us. It's not that we're just lazy or can't get through things. It's very much that there are simple things we can do to improve our lives as moms.
Yeah. I know a lot of women that I interviewed for the first book, Overcoming Distractions, were like diagnosed in their 40s. And
yeah.
So I think that's a very, very common thing, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. At this point, women, I think, are the number one group of the population being diagnosed. So we flew under the radar for so many years because women tend to be the inattentive type and not the hyperactive type. And so we kind of fly under the radar for a real long time. And then sometimes it's hormonal shifts. Sometimes it's added executive function pressures from having a family that really kick it up to the point where we need more help.
Right. Yeah. I always like to say that the boys were ripping apart the classroom while the girls were like just staring out the window.
Exactly.
So there was a clear indicator that the boy had ADHD. So
right, exactly.
Yeah, and that's what they did in my time. And then we went to detention. So
a great way to solve it, right?
Exactly. I also, there was, when I was in high school, they had all day detention for like the kids are really screwed up. And I'm like, could that be a worse thing for a kid with ADHD, is to like literally sit in a room all day with nothing, not a notepad? You're just, I mean, my God.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I would be bouncing off the walls too. And I don't even have the hyperactive type.
Yeah. I don't even know if they do that anymore, but it was like, wow, there was just, hopefully we've been educated over the years. So I know everybody's different. Obviously that just goes without saying, but describe a day in the life of an ADHD mom.
Sure. So moms tend to carry like the mental quote unquote load of the family. So we are the people who are planning the the day. We are trying to get our kids out the door. We're trying to get ourselves out the door. We are trying not to be overstimulated by all of the touch and the mommy, 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 mommy sounds. And so that's kind of like just the morning, right? Like before you even get to work.
Yeah.
That's just what's happened already. So, and then, in the evening, we don't get any kind of like downtime to like calm down our nervous system from being at work all day because we walk in the door and it's the same thing. Like it's just overstimulating. Everybody is trying to get everything done all at once. The kids are cranky. You're trying to figure out what to make for dinner and you've got, music on in the background or the TV's on and your, spouse is talking to you and the kids and you're trying to cook. And so it just gets really, really overwhelming. And so people talk about like the witching hour with kids, and I see it in myself. And I know other moms who do. We get like very emotionally dysregulated and very
Yeah.
overstimulated very easily.
Yeah. So, a working mom with ADHD, what are some things that you find in working with that type of person?
Mhm.
Maybe so. Again, I always preface these things, everybody's different, but because
Sure.
everybody has a different type of job, whether it's an office or they're an attorney or they're a leader somewhere or what have you. So, but when it comes to the working mom, what are the things that come up again and again that you see that people can relate to?
I think some of it is how do I get any time to rebalance myself, to kind of get myself back on track and be able to kind of move from one thing to another, whether, like task initiation is one thing, moving from tasks is another thing, but fitting in time to take care of their own brains. I think it's a big one. And a lot of times we see this in exercise. Like we know that exercise is good for ADHD. We know that.
Yeah,
And sometimes it's like, well, I was talking to a client yesterday and it's like, well, how are we going to get your walk in a way that you can do that in your life? And so we came up with, she's going to park her car at her office, put on her sneakers, walk around, do her loop before she gets in. So that way she's not having to switch and pull herself out. Right. And so it's a matter of trying to figure out what strategies are doable and, to each person's situation. But I think we always have our brains somewhere else. So like if we're at work, our brains are kind of with our families. And when we're
yeah,
at families, our brains are kind of at work. And so kind of working on those boundaries, limit setting, all of that can be really, really helpful.
yeah. And I know I work with a lot of people that are burned out and starting to do some kind of corporate work in the area of burnout to get companies to recognize that.
Yeah.
Um, and you go on social media and you say, "Oh, well, say no, set a boundary. It's your workload. Go drink a cup of water," or it's just. But what I don't think you kind of indicated a little bit is like a lot of people are stressed out before they even get to their desk in the morning. I
Yeah.
mean, and I think, would you agree that we need a little bit more awareness about the fact that, working moms, working dads too,
Yeah.
that, there's a lot of stuff going on and somebody can be already kind of frazzled before they even get to work.
Right. I mean, I think there's a lot of like, oh, we just roll out of bed and get ready for work and go. And you've already lived half a day by the time you roll it into the
You're a
office.
parent, yeah.
Right. So yeah, you're not starting fresh. You've been up who knows how many hours and you didn't get to sleep much, but trying to bring that awareness and then trying to have strategies yourself to try to start your day at the office. Maybe you need 5 minutes to just like close your eyes and shut the door
Yeah,
or whatever you need. And we kind of work on those little tiny things that you can implement and then just move that compass just 1 degree and you'll end up in a very different place.
right, right. Exactly. It can be overwhelming to say that I got to make these massive changes in my
Right.
environment and then it would never happen versus just, like you say, moving the needle
Yeah.
just a little bit, just to
Just
kind
a
of
little. Hmm.
reduce their stress. So we kind of touched on it a little bit, but do you find that working moms with ADHD, excuse me, they start to sense that their kid may have certain challenges. They go get an official diagnosis, and then all of a sudden the light bulb goes off, and that mom as well. And then they go for the diagnosis. Have you seen that a lot in the people you work
Oh
with?
yeah. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. I even saw it in my sister. That's how kind of I ended up with my diagnosis is she got her son tested and was
Mhm.
like, oh, connecting all those dots. Huh. And so she's been treating for it. And then the more I talk to her, so a lot of time, I mean, ADHD has a genetic component. And so a lot of times, moms generally will create all these coping mechanisms to make life happen. And then get their kid diagnosed because they're in school, they're school age or something. And that's when they'll be like, oh my gosh, like I have been living my entire life trying to keep up with everybody.
Yeah.
And it's not that I can't, it's just that my brain is wired differently, but they don't learn that um,
Yeah.
until, yeah, a lot of times until kids are diagnosed.
Yeah. Yeah. And they're like, oh my God, I do exactly what Junior does.
Exactly. Right. Uh-huh. 100%.
Holy crap.
Yep.
Yeah. No, that's an because like I said, the boys got the attention, and I don't think, I don't want to tread into waters that are going to get me in trouble, but I think it is just the visual aspect, as we said,
Yeah.
where the teachers and other people could see that the boys were more hyper and exhibiting
Yes.
other behaviors
Mhm.
that cause them to pause and say, okay, this kid might need extra help, or this kid might, we might need to, talk with the parents, and versus the girl that just doesn't exhibit anything, and
Right.
they wonder why they're struggling, right?
Sure, but I think there's also a component of the girls too who really excel in school
Mm,
because they've figured out those coping mechanisms, they figured out these different study habits, and so they're not even flagged. I mean, yes, there are some that struggle, but there are also some that really succeed. And like for me, I was always a high achiever in school, and so as school got harder, obviously my coping mechanisms needed to change, but no one would ever flag me. And I think too, part of that is also like the day that we're in now. People are talking about ADHD.
yeah.
They're recognizing it. When I was growing up, I don't think that many people either knew that girls could have ADHD or were even talking about it or having, good support systems in place. So,
Yeah. And then I can see the same scenario in the workplace,
mhm,
where it would almost be the same circumstances, where again the male is hyper and what
mhm,
have you, and the woman could be sitting in her office and kind of struggling and wondering why. I
right.
mean,
It
and
is
then they
so
bring
true.
that stress home, right?
Right. Exactly. And I think
Yeah.
a lot of women, especially if it's not been officially diagnosed or if it's late diagnosis, have spent so many years wondering what's wrong with them. Why can't I get my act together? Why can't I get anything on time? Shame, guilt, all of this stuff. It's like, okay, now this is who I am, right? I'm missing some piece of my brain that takes care of all of this. I must be flawed. I must be broken. I wasn't made out to be a mom, or I wasn't made out to be this job. Um, so there's also a lot of that, yeah, like sitting in your, in your office, just really, really hearing that inner critic just so loudly.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, and then you come home and there's more to do.
Yeah. Now I was the opposite in school. I got all the bad report cards. I mean, I laugh at them now,
Sure, of course.
but I wasn't that high achiever.
Yeah.
I mean, I barely clawed my way out of high school.
Oh,
so, so I have and again, I think there's some thing to, uh, like we said, going to detention, and do better, try harder, all the kind of
hmm.
boilerplate stuff that
Yes.
we hear. But like I said, I kind of laugh at it now, but it took me a while.
Sure.
So yeah,
Absolutely.
but I could see where the women, maybe they did do great in school, but they just struggled in other areas, and then it's a little bit of a puzzle, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's a lot of times where we're thinking, what have we done? Like, how did we get here?
Yeah.
And lots of imposter syndrome too. I think, if only someone knew how hard I'm struggling or how hard this is for me or how many extra steps I have to do to get this thing done,
Yeah.
they'd fire me or they'd realize I wasn't a good mom.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of that too.
And you see that in burnout as well, where the
Hmm.
kind of the same situations where
Yeah.
if they ever find me out and I just have to trying harder and harder and I got to work later and I got to work weekends and I got to pick up my phone on vacation and
Yeah.
everything else, and it's like
Exactly.
a spiral. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, let's switch gears a little bit. We got
Okay.
an ADHD mom. We got kids. We got a house. Okay. Organizing.
Big one. Big one. Hmm.
So what are those kind of core parts that obviously it's a massive topic, organizing the house or the garage or your
Yep.
office or even your files on your computer. But I think the visual clutter is probably what kind of really gets to to the mom, you know.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
so what are some of the core components when it comes to organizing as an ADHD mom and running a house and trying to, build a career? What are some of those things you would focus on with somebody?
I would look at systems like how is the flow of your house? If your keys don't make any sense in that drawer, put them somewhere where it does make sense.
Yeah.
Or with filing, if you've got everything over your kitchen island, like I sometimes do, put it in a place that says to be filed. And that way it's
Mm-hmm.
not your visual clutter. But also I think too, looking at the stuff that you bring into your house. Are we scrolling on Amazon and being like, oh, that looks fun? And just having that impulse, that impulsivity and that dopamine hit. And now we have all the stuff that we bought. So kind of looking at why are you bringing this into the house for a specific reason, but also like, is there something you can trade it for? Like, can you do a one-to-one, one thing in, one thing out? But really finding ways to make life easier, if you have one communal laundry basket so you don't have to go to everybody's rooms, great. If that works for your brain, awesome. Or if you need to, you know, put your clean laundry on your bed so that you can't go to sleep until it's folded and put away. It's just little things like that. And I think we get really overwhelmed by, excuse me, by feeling like we're never going to get there. We
Yeah.
just see the whole house as a mess. And this is not necessarily just moms, but we see the house as a mess. We don't know where to start. And so we don't. And so I think trying to put aside time, put limits on the time and say, I'm going to spend half an hour on Thursday night, plan it out, or it's not going to happen, to just work on this drawer. And then you start, and then you get some momentum. And once you get momentum, then you're like, ooh, this is making a difference. This is
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. Yeah. I suppose saying, you know what, I'm going to reorganize the entire kitchen today is probably not a good kind of strategy,
Right.
right?
Exactly. Just start with one place.
Yeah.
And that might be the biggest place that bothers you. Or it also might be the easiest because you'll get a quick win.
Yeah.
So,
Because I can see emptying the kitchen and then you're like, ah, crap.
right. And you get 90% of the way through it, and then food is still out on the counter and
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
Tupperware everywhere.
And the dishes and all the
Yep.
spatulas and everything else. And
Exactly.
yeah, I can see that. So, okay. So that's, yeah, because what do you do with, um, the kids stuff? I mean, obviously as kids age, there's different stuff.
Sure.
So how does a mom, busy job, organize the family stuff, but also make sure that the kids stuff isn't getting out of control? Because I know they always say, be a good role model as a parent on various
Hmm.
issues around the house or what have you. So
Sure.
how do we, how do we keep that all together?
We model for our kids. We, if age appropriate, talk about what we're doing, being like, wow, this really distracts me to have all this stuff on the table. I think I should spend a little time and do it. And so the kid starts to pick up on your cues, or you make it into a game, or, just depending on the age. And like, my son right now is 4, and he brings stuff home from school that he's made, which is adorable.
Right.
And um, do I want to save every piece? No, but sometimes just taking a picture of it before before I throw it away or recycle it,
Mm.
can be helpful. So that way you're not taking up the visual, like this physical space, but you have that memory if you want it on your computer or in your phone or whatever. So thinking about what are those things that you can turn digital, and get out of the way.
Well, yeah, because he's 4 now, so when he gets to 17 and through high school, there's
Right.
you're gonna have to build an addition in the house for
Oh yeah, no, we're already planning on that. Yeah.
for all the stuff. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
okay. All right. I know we could do a whole episode on organizing. We've done it
Oh,
before. Maybe
absolutely.
we need to come back to that. But I really want to, just give people that kind of ADHD mom 101. What do we
Hmm.
need to focus on today? So
Yeah.
on your website, you talk about emotional intelligence, and I know there's a lot more kind of um, attention being brought to emotional intelligence in various areas of our lives. But can you give us like an overview of emotional intelligence as an ADHD mom?
Yeah, I think the big part of this is emotional dysregulation. And so um, we, especially moms that I work with, feel like they fly off the handle at the smallest thing,
Yeah,
or they make a big deal from a small stimulus. And so getting back on track and trying to figure out, like, what can I do ahead of time so I don't reach that breaking point? Or if I'm in that moment and I know that I'm about to lose it, what are some quick things that I can do just to bring me back into my body and, be mindful and be, because a lot of times we just react, if like your kid's not listening or doing something and you're like, I'm not going to ask you for the 27th time to put your shoes on, right? Like
yeah,
then we start to go and then the whole day's ruined, right?
yeah. Mhm.
Because
Not that
we're
we know anything about that.
right. Yeah. For a hypothetical example.
Mhm.
Um, but I think trying to know that that's what's happening in our brain, because basically in our brain, the emotional area, the place that produces emotions is hyperactive, and
Mhm.
then the one like the gatekeepers that modulate it are underactive. So we get lots of emotion
Yeah,
and not a lot of checkpoints. And so I think a lot of moms feel bad about, yelling at their kid or their spouse or, in a meeting, whatever. That's a big piece of just understanding that that is part of the picture of the brain. It's not a character issue. It's not you're an angry person issue or you're overly sensitive. It's just that, hey, that's the way your brain is firing. And just understanding that, I think, gives moms can give themselves a lot of grace, um, and not feel like they're bad moms.
but I can see where our own habits, it's like a domino effect where, we're busy, we're working late, we're running late,
Hmm.
um, and then the kids are late, or you need to get the kids to do something, but we haven't, like, I don't know, made breakfast or a morning coffee, and then you're trying to get the kids to school, and because you work late, and now it's
Hmm.
like this chain reaction. So you're
Yeah.
late, the kids are running late, and
Hmm.
you're getting maybe a little, I guess, dysregulated or emotional
Yep.
about the fact that you're trying to get your kids on the school bus or what have you.
Yep.
But if you retrace your steps, you realize, I'm not saying it's somebody's fault. It's just a kind of
Yeah.
casualty of being a busy mom, that
Sure.
you didn't maybe get stuff done the night before. So is that does that does that resonate? Does that sound familiar? Where it's
Sure.
just like that chain reaction where, we busted our ass the day before, but now we're trying to get our kids on track, but we're part of this chain reaction, right?
Right, exactly. And
Mm.
so that's where I really encourage moms to take a look at their systems and how they are actually using their time.
Yeah.
And, what can be systematized, what can be delegated, how, what things do you actually need to hold on to get your kids out the door in the morning, and what things can you just not even worry about, and let it slide. But
Yeah.
kind of having a realistic picture of that where you're not trying to do everything all at the same time. Because like you said, now you're arriving at the office dysregulated and overstimulated. And now that's going to totally affect your productivity.
Yeah.
And you're going to feel bad about that. And then you're going to go home and be, dysregulated by your family, and then maybe work late and then go to bed, not get enough sleep,
Right.
rinse and repeat.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Rinse and repeat. That can it could be days of like recovering from,
Yeah,
like one day of like not planning or structure or routines.
exactly.
Yeah, it can
Exactly.
spill into to many days. I mean, how do we get there? Because I know when I work with people, that they're just going day to day to day, and they're just trying to shovel their to-do lists and projects, and they're late with things, and they have other people that need to get them stuff and all that. I mean, one of the things that, and I hate to say this, but it's one of the most simple things is just, I tell people, just like carve out like 30 minutes a day for yourself, like before you like go into that meeting, or it's like that Monday morning meeting with yourself. Or I
Hmm.
mean, I think, I don't know if you would agree, but the only way we're going to be able to build these systems and routines is if we actually slow down and stop and just kind of
Yeah,
gain awareness about everything that's going on, because you can't build a routine when you're just literally walking through fire.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think we go through our habits, we go through our routines very mindlessly. And when my clients start talking about, oh, well, where can you actually carve out that time?
Yeah.
That's when you start being mindful and being like, okay, what am I doing right now? How am I using my time? Could I be using it differently? And what about me? Like what are the things that I need to do to set myself up for a better week, like that Monday morning meeting with yourself? Or do you need 5 minutes before you get out of bed every morning? Or do you need to journal halfway through the day? Or, how can you keep yourself in check? And then, but I totally agree with the idea of blocking out time. And
Mm.
I had one person teach me at one point to that's the first thing you write on your calendar is you put in the self-care, and then you put in everything else.
Yeah.
Because if you don't schedule it, it's never going to happen.
Right. And if you don't understand what the chaos is in the course of a day or a week, then
Right.
you can't solve it. So it's like, look, bedtime's a nightmare.
Hmm.
Mornings are a nightmare around the house. Like I'm always missing the bus. I'm always
Yeah.
I forgot to make the kids lunches, or I just and then I didn't charge my laptop the night before, so my laptop was dead when I got to the office. I mean,
Right.
you've got to take time to figure out where the chaos is, and then kind of build a, a system around it. I talked to
Exactly.
one person that um, was consistently late to work. Um, Same thing, like the laptop was dead in the morning, all these things. Um, and and I used this for years, where I got a tabletop clipboard where it was like it stood on the thing, on the table.
Hmm.
And you could just, it's like $10 on Amazon, but we just clipped a Word doc that they printed out, or just even a legal pad, and used the Sharpie, but they put it on the kitchen counter. And it was like, this is what needs to be done the night before, make the coffee, make the kids sandwiches, charge the laptop, all it was in their face.
Hmm.
And that seems to work for some people, because I got a routine. That's great, but now it needs to be in my face, and
Right.
I need to walk by it on the kitchen counter every night. Yeah.
Exactly. So I kind of created something like that in my own house because I felt as a mom, I have all these things going on in my head of like all the things that need to be done. And so I wrote them all on a whiteboard so that my husband could see and I could see visually what needed to be done. And so just by sharing that, like he's able to knock some stuff off of the list. I don't have to
Mm,
do all of it. We can
yeah.
have a conversation about that. I can also just add things really quickly, when I'm thinking of it, but it's there and it's visual. It's like for me, I can't keep things in my phone because it's not in front of my face.
Right.
I have a paper wall calendar and a paper journal or planner, because if it's electronic, I just don't remember to go back to it. So
Yeah. No, I'm the exact same way. I'm as simplistic and caveman as it gets when it
yeah,
comes to because it needs to be in my face. Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So cool. As we wrap up, I always like to give somebody listening things they can just walk away with and think about or even implement or some action items. So in your experience, you got a busy mom, ADHD, whatever it is, busy career, kids, all that stuff. What are one, two, three things that they can be thinking about after they listen to us that can be kind of a game changer?
I would say one, the biggest one is like, you're not alone.
Mm,
There are so many other moms that are struggling just like you, and they're out there. You just got to talk about it. So that's a big one for me. I think two, being mindful, like we talked about, like actually examining how things flow in your house, how your time is flowing. Just like even just stop and record it for a while, just so you see. Like we all have the quotes, same 24 hours in the day, but we might need to spend more time on some things and less time on others, but we don't know where that time is getting lost. Um, and I think too, just model for your kids, whether they're neurodivergent or not, um, have those conversations of like, you know what? I need to take a little break. I'm going to go, like for me, I do like a nervous system reset.
yeah.
Most days, like when my husband comes home from work, I'm like, I just need 20 minutes by myself
Yeah.
in my dark room with my white noise machine on,
Hmm.
and asking for that and saying that it's legit, right?
Yeah.
It's something you got to do.
Yeah. It's real. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I love a quiet room. I
Yes.
love some people they can't kind of wrap their heads around that, but I love a room where it's like dead silent, you know?
Yes.
So,
Yes.
you know, so take some time for yourself and
Right.
make the family understand that you need that.
Right. And that's just
Yeah.
how your brain works. There's nothing wrong with you. They didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah.
But just, verbalize what's going on, because that's going to help the whole family be able to have a conversation about what could we do differently, instead of it just being a mom problem.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Cool. Well, thank you for helping all those ADHD moms out there. I know there's many of them that listen that are again juggling a busy, demanding career
Yeah.
and the kids and everything else. And I'm sure they are grateful for this conversation. So we will have to have you back at some point and dig in a little further because
I'd love that.
moms would love to hear that. So it's annaburnswellness.com, correct?
Yes. Yep.
Cool.
That's my website, and Instagram is at Anna Burns Wellness. So it's easy. It's all the same.